Every search starts with a grid, terrain divided into sections, probability scores assigned, resources deployed. The system works when the people running it are working with the truth. Tonight, that was not the case. A legally blind man. 6 people who should have noticed he was gone. They didn't. A ranger who knew every drainage in the Sierra Nevada and left his gun on the table before he walked out, and a through hiker who walked into a typhoon, whose entire search was redirected for months by 2 men sitting at a football game. 3 searches, all of them wrong before they started. In every case, the most important piece of information about the missing person was either withheld, never shared, or completely fabricated. And the search paid the price for it. Hold that, because by the end of tonight, that pattern is going to feel less like coincidence and more like the thing that actually cost them. April 2009, Petite's Gap, Virginia, Appalachian Trail. Kenneth Knight was 42 years old. He was from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He had already hiked nearly 1,700 miles of the Appalachian Trail. He was legally blind. Not a recent injury, not a fall. Kenneth Knight had one eye and had been legally blind his entire adult life. He navigated trailblazes with a monocular. The white rectangles that most hikers spotted from 20 feet away did not appear to him until he was almost touching them. He hiked slowly, deliberately. He had developed a system for managing terrain that most sighted hikers would not have thought to build. He knew what he was doing. He had already done it for 1,700 miles. The group he was hiking with in April 2009 was 7 people, all connected through an online hiking forum, a 60-mile section through Virginia's Blue Ridge, hardwood forest, rocky terrain, rolling elevation. The group's dynamic, by Kenneth's own description, was loose. Some days they walked together, some days they spread out. The agreement was to meet at camp each evening. Not a buddy system, not scheduled check-ins, just meet us at the end of the day. A legally blind man, rocky mountain terrain, a loose agreement. Somewhere in the rolling forest, Kenneth stepped off the blazed trail onto a game trail. He does not remember the exact moment. He just remembers stopping and realizing the trail was gone. He turned back. He tried another direction. After 20 minutes of searching through identical trees, he stopped. For a legally blind man, there is no just look around and get your bearings. There are no visual anchors beyond arm's reach. The AT in that section is dense. The trail disappears into hardwood within 30 feet in both directions. Kenneth made a decision. Move downhill toward the James River, find water, an hour of picking through steep terrain, then a stream. He filtered water. He drank. He stopped moving, and he waited. He hung an emergency blanket in the trees. He built signal fires. He rationed 3 days of dehydrated meals down to 1 per day. He built cairns of rocks and twigs around his camp so he could find his way back after each short exploration. A man navigating by touch, marking a camp he could not see, waiting for a group who had not yet raised an alarm. Day 2 passed. Day 3. Here is the question that the Backpacker magazine coverage of this case raises and does not fully answer. 6 people. 6 people who knew a legally blind man was hiking with them on rocky mountain terrain. 6 people who had agreed, loosely, to meet at camp each evening. 6 people who, when Kenneth did not appear, apparently did not immediately contact the U.S. Forest Service. He was missing for 6 days. He was found on day 6, not by a search team deployed to find him, by Blue Ridge firefighters who saw smoke rising from the Virginia ridgeline and went to investigate the fire risk. They followed the smoke. They found him alive. The rescue logs are in the U.S. Forest Service system. His account is documented in Backpacker magazine. The official record confirms the timeline. What the official record does not fully answer is the 6 days between the last time the group saw Kenneth Knight and the moment firefighters followed smoke to find him. A loose dynamic on the trail. That is what he called it. Loose was almost the last thing Kenneth Knight ever was. July 20th, 1996. Bench Lake, Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks, California. Randy Morgenson was 54 years old. He had spent 28 summers as a backcountry ranger in Sequoia and Kings Canyon, more consecutive seasons than almost anyone in the history of the National Park Service. He had memorized drainages that did not appear on official maps. He knew the snowpack behavior of meadows no trail crew had ever touched. He was described by colleagues as the most experienced high-altitude ranger in the Sierra Nevada. His station in the summer of 1996 was at Bench Lake, a remote outpost deep in the Kings Canyon backcountry. The nearest road was hours away on foot. He had been stationed there dozens of times before. But the summer of 1996 was not like the others. Before the season began, colleagues noticed Randy seemed different, quieter. His wife, Judy, who had joined him in the backcountry for years, had filed for divorce. He had told one close colleague that at times he felt suicidal. He told almost no one else. On July 20th, he radioed 2 fellow rangers. The conversation was brief, meandering. They said later it felt like he just wanted to hear a voice. Then, without particular reason, he ended the call. His last words on that radio transmission: "I won't be bothering you two anymore." The next morning, he tacked a handwritten note to his tent. "Gone on patrol. Back in 3 or 4 days." At the top of the note, he wrote a date: June 21st, not July 21st. A full calendar month off, from a man who had kept meticulous field logs for 28 consecutive seasons. A man who dated every entry, every incident log, every wildlife observation with the precision of someone who understood that accurate documentation kept people alive in the backcountry. He had never made that kind of error in 3 decades. He left his Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum on the table. Backcountry rangers do not go on solo patrol unarmed. It is not policy. It is not practice. In 28 seasons, Randy Morgenson had never done it. He did it that morning. Nobody realized he was missing until July 25th, 4 days later, when a second-year ranger named Rick Sanger realized he had not heard Randy's voice on the radio in days. Sanger hiked through the night to Bench Lake. He found the note. He found the gun. He called it in. What followed was described as one of the most intense SR operations in National Park Service history. Nearly 100 personnel deployed across 80 square miles of granite wilderness, thermal vision helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, dog teams, ground teams in terrain so steep and fractured that some sections had never been formally mapped. They searched for 10 days, then scaled back, then returned periodically for months. They found nothing. In July 2001, 5 years after Randy walked out of Bench Lake, a trail worker doing routine maintenance in the Window Peak drainage found bones along a creek. Rangers arrived. They found a tattered shirt with Randy Morgenson's badge still attached. A 2-way radio, switched on, battery long dead, but left in transmit-ready position, as if he had wanted to be reached, or had tried to call out, and his backpack, still on his remains, waist belt still buckled. Whatever happened in the Window Peak drainage happened fast. The bones had been exposed to 5 winters and could not establish cause of death. Author Eric Blame spent 8 years investigating this case for his book, The Last Season. His conclusion is careful and deeply unsettling. Randy Morgenson knew the Sierra Nevada better than any active ranger in the National Park Service. He knew which drainages never appeared on aerial sweeps. He knew which creek corridors held snow bridges deep into July. He knew which sections of terrain received low probability scores in a standard search grid. He left his gun behind because a ranger found shot in the backcountry raises questions. A ranger who vanishes does not. The National Park Service pays a death benefit of $100,000 to the family of a ranger killed in the line of duty. The policy explicitly does not apply in cases of suicide. October 12, 2016. White Pass, Washington. Pacific Crest Trail, mile 2,292. Kris Fowler was 34 years old. His trail name was Sherpa. He had been northbound on the Pacific Crest Trail for months, grinding toward the northern terminus with the specific focused endurance of someone who had been on trail long enough that stopping for weather felt like quitting. He stopped at the Cracker Barrel at White Pass for coffee. He shouldered his pack. He headed north, into Typhoon Songda. Meteorologists were calling it the biggest storm to hit Washington state in 15 to 20 years. Wind, rain, early season snow at elevation. PCT hikers up and down the Washington section were bailing to roads and towns and any exit they could find. The northern Cascades in October with a typhoon system closing from the Pacific is not a place an experienced trail person mistakes for manageable conditions. Kris Fowler headed north anyway. His phone had last pinged at White Pass that morning. The moment he stepped onto the trail, he had no signal. He was entering a 28-mile section between White Pass and Chinook Pass with no cell service, no GPS beacon, and a typhoon at his back. He never emerged at Chinook Pass. He was reported missing on October 30th, 2016. The Yakima County Sheriff's Department launched a search. Trail sections, flyovers, road exit checks. Nothing. Then the search changed direction entirely. 2 bear hunters came forward. They reported seeing a man matching Kris Fowler's description on October 22nd, 10 days after he disappeared, near Blowout Mountain. Blowout Mountain is 62 miles north of White Pass. The search pivoted. Resources moved north. Search teams focused on Blowout Mountain for months. Later, investigators checked the bear hunters' social media. On the date they claimed to be hunting near Blowout Mountain, they had posted photographs of themselves at a football game. The sighting was fabricated. The search had been operating on a false coordinate for months. Time, funding, resources, volunteer hours, all of it directed at a mountain 62 miles from where Kris Fowler most likely was. The 28-mile section between White Pass and Chinook Pass, the section he actually entered, the section where Typhoon Songda hit hardest, was never comprehensively searched off trail. Researchers who have studied this case believe he most likely succumbed to hypothermia within 48 hours of entering the trail somewhere in that corridor. The storm would have saturated his clothing within hours. The temperature dropped. The snow came. The terrain between White Pass and Chinook Pass is steep, heavily forested, and in October conditions almost entirely inaccessible off the marked trail. No body has ever been found. No gear, no campsite, no pack, nothing physical. His family established the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation and has continued searching. The case remains officially open. Classified as a missing person because without physical evidence there is no confirmation of death. His name is in the PCT register at White Pass. Sherpa, northbound, October 12th. Below it, nothing. A false sighting. a redirected search. Months of effort pointed at the wrong mountain by two men who were at a football game when they claimed to be in the field. The 28-mile corridor where Kris Fowler most likely is has still not been fully searched. 3 cases, 3 searches, 3 failures that happened before the first team deployed. The lesson across all 3 is the same. The wilderness did not take these people. The systems around them did. Here is what you can do differently. If you are hiking in a group, establish a real check-in protocol before you leave the trailhead. Not meet us at camp. A specific time. A specific action if that time passes without contact. Kenneth Knight was missing for 6 days because his group had no protocol. The search that found him was not looking for him. If you know something critical about someone going into the backcountry, tell the people who will be responsible for finding them. George Durkee voted Rest of World on that search ballot and said nothing. 10 days of searching in the wrong direction followed. Carry a satellite communicator on any remote trail section. A spot, or Garmin in reach, transmits your GPS coordinates regardless of cell coverage. Kris Fowler had no beacon. The search that should have covered his 28-mile corridor was redirected by a fabricated sighting for months. The wilderness does not always take people. Sometimes it is the systems we build around them that do. 2 questions before you go. Which of these 3 searches failed the person most completely? And if you have hiked any of these trail sections, White Pass, the Virginia Blue Ridge, the Kings Canyon backcountry, drop what you know in the comments. I read every single one. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Good night.